Someone You Should Know, a program about people you know and even more that you don't. Hosted by Stuart Sax, veteran, husband, father, and grandfather. Now, here's your host, Stuart Sax.
Well, welcome back to another edition of Someone You Should Know. I am so glad to have you with us because this has been a show that's been a little bit of time in the making, and it's finally here. I am so happy. It is also a show that is brought to you by my good friend Irving Chung, who is a franchise specialist. Now, no matter where you are, anywhere in the United States and even up in Canada, if you are even thinking about maybe it would be interesting to know a little more about a franchise, all you got to do is set up a consultation with Irving Chung. He can tell you everything there is to know about franchising and what it might cost you in order to get involved in it. It may be a lot less than what you think. Well, I kind of spilled the beans a little bit. I mentioned Canada. This is going to be an international show because I have somebody that I admire so much, and I have yet to see her in person until this show. Rita Chiarelli, welcome to Someone You Should Know.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
You get my heart pumping because Rita is an award-winning blues singer. And I don't use those words lightly because, girl, you got the pipes for singing the blues.
Thank you so much.
And you know, in all of my life, and I'm from Chicago originally, so
there you go.
So I know a little bit about the blues. And one thing that I know is if you really want to witness and enjoy a blues singer that gets into what they're doing, their eyes are closed.
Yeah.
Because they feel their music. They don't just sing words, they actually feel the music. And you do it better than most that I have seen.
Thank you so much.
And you've been doing it a while too. I didn't realize that you started when you were a teenager.
I did. I started. I was about 15, Stuart. I was in high school, and through a series of events, I was able to get a little part-time band together, and we played pretty much every weekend. We played. We rehearsed. It was. Even though I was in high school, it was almost like a full-time job because we played, like I say, most weekends, and we rehearsed a couple of nights a week. So, and after that, I went on the road immediately after high school, and that's been my life since.
And you're still churning it out. And also, what is also incredible is I have listened to most of your albums, and you write most of your music.
I do, yes.
Now, when you go out and entertain to audiences, do you do a combination of your music as well as some covers of other blues artists?
Yeah, you know what, Stuart? There's about 4 tunes that I've been doing since I was a kid, right? 4 like pretty traditional blues tunes that I first learned. One of the first blues tunes that I ever learned and sang was a tune called "How Blue Can You Get." It's a B.B. King recorded it, and and every once in a while I still perform that. I still perform "Nighttime Is the Right Time." I have about, like I say, 3 or 4. I still perform a version of Hound Dog. Sort of, it's a combination version. It's sort of my own take on the Big Mama Thornton original version and stuff like that. So yeah, I do a combination of my own stuff, and then some tunes that I just can't let go of. It seems, that I still got to pull out once in a while.
You do a great job on "Thrill Is Gone," another B.B. King tune.
Yeah.
And also, you do one of the coolest versions of "You Are My Sunshine."
Oh, thank you.
I mean, you folks, RitaChiarelli.com. it's about all I need to say. You got to visit the website and see the
Thank
amazing
you.
things that this lady has done. Um, and we're going to talk a little bit about a lot of stuff, including a couple of the projects that you've been doing the last couple of years that I think are absolutely mind blowing.
Thank you.
And they are music related, but like nothing you even would think of. But going back to the beginning, did you always know that you wanted to be a singer and a songwriter right from the get go?
I knew from when I was a very small child that you know singing brought me to life. Well, I'm here in Canada. My parents were Italian immigrants, and so life was really hard. I was born here in Canada, and music. There was a lot of music in our house. Different kinds. I have older brothers, and they brought R&B and blues, and my parents, who also loved music and were Italian, they brought Italian music, of course, into my ears. And so for me, there was always music. And yeah, I would say that I knew from a very, very young age that this was my probable destiny.
And
Yeah.
and you started writing when you were 15 years old too?
I did not. I started writing like at first, like the process for me was emulating these incredible voices that I heard, not only just the voice, but the expression. Because when I was a kid, with all due respect, everything was so whitewashed. And, I'm from immigrant parents. Hamilton, where I live again, where I was born, is a steel town. So, it's a blue collar. It was a really rough town when I was a kid. And so that's that, the music sort of, made me come alive, is what brought life to me, really. My parents were, like I say, they worked hard and we were struggling and stuff like that. And the fact that I could, sing, allowed me to, go to high school and pursue certain things. And then once I left, I never looked back, of course.
Do
I was
you
like,
do you think that your upbringing in a rather modest background,
very much so.
and childhood, did that kind of add to your feeling for going, instead of the rock and roll path, but
Yeah.
singing the blues?
Well, I think so because, when you hear, like, okay, so I'm a kid and like, pretty much if you're listening to AM radio at the time, it's very, uh, what's the word? Middle of the road, I guess you would call it. Now I'm a kid and I'm growing up and my parents are immigrants and, things are kind of tough and that kind of thing. And all of a sudden I start hearing blues music, and I hear people like screaming and like, I mean, telling it like it is, like things like you never heard on radio before were being said. And women were like, Big Mama Thornton and Etta James and Coco Taylor, and women were screaming it out. And it was like, holy cow, where's this world? This is where I belong. The passion that they had, and also their angst. And, they talked about how hard life was and stuff. That related more to me than what was being played on AM radio. I related more to that kind of stuff than what else was being played. So it was a natural progression for me, Stuart, to go to blues music. They're crying and screaming and they're hurting and hey,
Yeah,
yeah,
and it was what I think some of the critics have called churchin music. It kind of a spillover between Sunday church and Saturday night. The blues clubs, uh,
yeah,
and I have always felt uh, that the blues again, as I said earlier, is more of a kind of music of the feelings. Uh,
Yeah.
the music comes from here. It
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily come from here. You put it down on paper, but then you put the music behind it, and you play the notes, but you feel the
Yeah.
lyric.
You're absolutely right, because I've had some incredibly accomplished musicians, excuse me, that really still don't understand the blues. Like they couldn't, even though they could play incredibly, all kinds of stuff and fast and like all this stuff, but they didn't quite understand the difference, of playing a blues tune and having those emotions. I think you have to feel it to really play it, and I think that's what you're saying ultimately.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
So now you started off early in your teens, then you progress on into your 20s, and you start. Did you start recording early too?
No, I didn't. I started touring. I toured throughout the States. I toured Canada, and I I I might be a little bit unusual in that way, because I was I was later. I came late into writing my own material, you might say. Where younger artists these days, they're all writing their own tunes, and back in the day, you had songwriters and interpreters, people that sang other people's songs. So at first, for many years, I was just, working on my chops. And, I was working 6 nights a week, sometimes matinees. Like, I mean, we sang everything as far as blues, like, the phone book, for God's sakes, we sang hours and hours. And
And for one thing, was the blues as popular in Canada as it was here in the States?
I think you had to look for the blues when I was a kid a little bit, but I think it was always entrenched in our music here as well, which was the same as in the States. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't get away from the fact that all the big bands from, especially a while back, were all influenced by the blues, heavily influenced, and so yeah, I think that was certainly part of it. It's a huge influence to, like, I'm on a rampage now because it is a huge influence. It was a huge influence to Canadian music. It was a huge influence to American music. So I think that blues goes up and down in popularity. Like all of a sudden, like maybe Eric Clapton, for instance, a few years back came out with Back to the Cradle, I think it was called, or something like that. So all of a sudden, there's a new interest because the album was so well received, blah, blah, blah. So there's a new interest in the blues. So I think the popularity of blues comes and goes as far as a big picture. But the blues, there's always an audience for the blues, I think, Stuart. There's always venues that, have blues artists and blues radios and stuff like that. I'm talking about a wider scope of people. I think once
Right.
or Robert Craig comes out with something and it happens to get some, airplay on commercial radio. Like I was saying, Eric Clapton, he gets some play on commercial radio. Now, people are reinterested in the blues, so to speak, People that don't realize that they've been listening to blues music. There's also that, And I see that, yeah,
even for folks to even follow rock and roll, I mean, one of the greatest bands ever, the Rolling Stones, a lot of the music that they have done over the years was influenced by old blues artists. Um, uh, you know, uh,
all
almost
of it.
almost every album that they come out with will have one or two blues tunes in it.
Yeah, especially their early stuff, when they were, starting to write. When you as early artists, sometimes we're discovering who we are and what we want to do,
Right.
what works and stuff like that. Led Zeppelin is a huge example. I think even almost more than the Stones. I mean, some of their early stuff is like almost note per note from blues stuff, from blues music, Shook You All Night Long, and or some of the other stuff, yeah, it's all influence. It's all blues music, I don't know,
Right.
but a lot of people, don't realize that, early on. But anyway, it certainly is.
Well, and sometimes when they're listening to a rock and roll album, all of a sudden they don't really understand that influence and hear a tune that really does have its roots in the blues.
Yeah.
Who were some of the you mentioned a couple people, but who are some of the other people that were influencers of yours?
Well, okay, so certainly Coco Taylor. I opened up for Coco Taylor twice, which was,
That must have been exciting.
it was awesome. I'll tell you something, because the second time, and she was gracious like you can't imagine. The second time I opened up for her, we were at this festival and I was on right before her. So Coco's going up and they're helping her on stage, and I was worried for her, because she looked kind of like fragile, if you will. And I thought, oh, what's going on, right? And she goes up and she started wailing, and she might have been fragile getting up the stairs, but her voice was not fragile at all.
Yeah, but right from the downbeat, she
Oh yeah,
she got in the groove.
exactly. Like right from the moment it started, wow, it was like, oh, okay, everybody's hair went back. So Coco Taylor, all the big voiced gals, I really liked a lot. Like I say, Mama Thornton, Etta James, but I also liked, I liked Buddy Guy and who else? There's a lot of Canadian artists as well, but my favorites are definitely are the older better.
The pillars of
Exactly.
of the blues era. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
Muddy Waters and John Lee Hooker and some of those people that really laid down some
Yeah.
of the early foundations of
Exactly.
what blues was to be and what it was going to
Exactly.
be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Christine, if you have got it queued up and all, I want to expose Rita Chiarelli to our audience a little bit by playing a clip of one of her live performances, and also if you're ready, sit back, folks, and just.
My baby don't have to run on steel. Baby, don't have to wobble still. Give her everything she needs. I am a driving wheel. Well, let me be started. Say, be back soon. Say me be back soon. Be back early Friday morning, late Saturday afternoon. Well, I don't want to keep. When my baby died, I don't know what to keep. That goes to my baby. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I mean about feeling the music.
Thank you. Yeah.
You know,
That's in Baden, Switzerland. That was live, and that was a band I put together called Sweet Loretta. All women's band, all females, and yeah, we had about a couple of years that we performed. I like doing different projects, Stuart. That's why I like to I don't want to always do just straight ahead stuff. I like to combine it with different things. That was a project of adding horns and incredibly capable. I'm being modest here. Musicians that happen to be women. Great musicians that happen to be women, and so I put that together, and I have done different projects in my life because that keeps me. I think it keeps me interested and interesting. I hope.
yeah, and also what I see is that you don't have a voice that is just one direction. I mean, you can belt out something that sounds like Coco Taylor, turn around and I hear Janis Joplin in your voice. I
Yeah.
I hear Melissa Etheridge. Uh, I also some of your playing and singing on some of the slower tunes. I mean, even Joe Bonamassa, who is I think one of the most incredible performers today. You emulate a lot of what he does, and very much of that feeling and transitioning of the music to the performance.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, it was a way for me, and it has continued to be my entire life. It was a way to express myself. It was I was able to express myself at a time when not many people were listening. Because life was tough, and we didn't have the luxury of having family meetings about what was going on and stuff like that. So music was therapeutic, and so it was immediately real and from the heart and how I felt, and that's how I performed then and how I still perform. It's the only way to perform. By the way, I just have to say, because you mentioned Joe Bonamassa, and I met him at a festival, and I'm just going to say this, I'm not going to go on, but he's a real gentleman and a great guy. I just want you to know that on top of being incredible, he's a really, really great guy. So
He
anyway,
he always has impressed me as being somebody that just has been unaffected by
yeah,
by everything around him.
he's a real guy. He's humble, and he was just great. He was great to meet. It was just such a pleasure to meet
And
him.
he gives a lot back to the community too, and
Yeah.
that's wonderful. And
Yeah.
that's something we're going to get into
Okay.
in a moment. I at this point in this program, I do want to give a shout out to a very dear friend, Elise Rook, who
Yes.
introduced me to you because you were entertaining down at the villages in Florida, and I think she even got on stage with you and sang a little backup.
She might have. Yeah, I think so. Back
And
in.
and she wrote to me and she said, "Boy, have I got a firecracker for you!" And
Yeah,
here
she's
here you are
incredible.
on the show. So, Elise
Thank
Rook,
you.
thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you, Elise. I'll send a message to her tonight, actually.
I'm going to make sure she gets a copy of this show too.
Right
Uh,
on.
So now I want to get into something that you have started to do, which I think that these people that are watching and listening to this show say, "Great, she's got a great voice, great talent, and all." But has she? What else has she done? Well, boy, talk about kicking it out of the box. Uh, you did a documentary,
Yeah,
a couple of years back, and it was called "Music from the Big House."
correct.
I
Yeah.
want you to tell this audience, what is Music from the Big House about? How did it become reality?
Okay. So music from the big house. How this started was, so I'm in Canada. I'm a blues artist, and I loved going on my own. I'd get in my car and I would drive down the Blues Highway, Highway 61, and go down and go through Mississippi, down, to maybe Memphis even, and even further down to New Orleans. And so I would take these journeys, this on my own, and just to soak up, what was going on, soak up the emotion, the feeling, the music, everything, the air, the food, everything was inspiring and down south to me. And so I prepared to take do a pilgrimage down to all the way down to New Orleans was what I was planning. So I did some research. I'll try to put it in a nutshell because it is a kind of a long story. But anyway, I did some research and I came up with, just places I wanted to stop in Clarksdale, Blues Town Extraordinaire, etc., all the way down to Mississippi, etc. And I came across Angola. Angola is this place in Louisiana, and it's at the end of Old Highway 66, and it's a prison. It used to be a plantation, and it was sold to the government and became a prison. And it is known for its music from way back when, because it was in the Mississippi Delta, pardon me, and they scooped up a lot of people. And so it ended up that a lot of artists, blues artists, including Lead Belly, etc., Pete Williams, and different people got incarcerated there. And so it has a musical history as well. Lomax went in to record them and recorded Lead Belly, and so it became famous. And I came across this while I was in my house in Toronto, and then I thought, wow, this is amazing. And there's recordings, right? Still, that people went into the prison in 1929 or 1939 or whatever, and recorded some of these inmates, right? So I found all of this stuff. And I just put it in this folder, not thinking anything. And on my way down to wherever I was going, I think I was going to end up in New Orleans on this one trip. I was going down Highway 61, and I came across this sign. I'm going to stop it, and the sign says Angola, turn right. The prison, at the prison, I was like, and it said Louisiana State Maximum Security Penitentiary for men, right? The sign. So I just took the turn. And this goes back now many years, actually. I was just thinking about how many years, and it's so many. I think it's about 20 years ago now. And I stopped at a convenience store, and this is a true story, and I called the prison, and I said, I'm Canadian. I'm a blues musician. This would never happen today, by the way. This could never happen today. They would never, with everything that's going on. Oh, yeah. Well, with everything that's gone on the last 20 years, as you can imagine, unless you've been background checked and et cetera, you're not going in. But at that time, they let me in. And I just slowly nurtured a relationship with one of the wardens. She was in charge of sort of public relations, and sort of said, I'd really like to do something. Maybe I could do a concert. Anyway, it evolved to the point where I had the idea that rather than doing a Johnny Cash thing, with all due respect to Johnny Cash, of course, rather than just performing for the inmates, I should sing with the inmates. Because they still had musical inmates in there, right? Of course. And so I asked if I could perform with them, and so, they brought a few of them out. This is after years of getting a relationship together, them understanding that my aim is true, for lack of a better expression, that I just wanted to see what was going on in there. This is a very famous prison, especially for the blues and stuff. So, let's hear these guys. Let's see what's going on. And it turned out, it turned out from performing for them, I said to the warden, I said, I should perform with them because they had different groups in the prison. So I said, I should perform with the inmates. And they said, well, this has
Yeah.
never been done, especially with a woman, because again, this is a maximum security male penitentiary. So I said, well, if it's never been done, and Stuart, you have to realize, I had no plan. I had no plan. I didn't go down with a plan. I didn't expect anything to happen.
And,
I was
and,
just
and you weren't traveling with the band.
no, I was just on my own
No,
trying to
yeah.
soak up inspiration, either through other musicians. Everything about the South kind of inspired me. The food, the air, the
Right.
music, of course. And all of the thing of the South. And yeah, so slowly she said, okay, when she said, well, this has never been done. And I said, well, then maybe we should record it. Maybe this needs to be filmed, right? So like I said, absolutely, it was all like an onion unpeeling slowly,
Yeah.
doing a concert, to doing a concert with the inmates, to then doing a concert and recording it. So I got the okay to bring a film crew down, and I never made a film, right? I'm a musician, so I came back to Canada, and we have a kind of a renegade. I don't know what to call him. I love him. His name is Bruce Mcdonald. He's a director up here, and he's kind of a wild guy and does different movies. And he had put one of my
Well, this was a wild concept too.
yeah, it was right. And
Yeah.
so when I came back to Canada, and Bruce McDonald had put one of my tunes in one of his very first movies, right? Had put one of my tunes in his movies. So, and I hadn't spoken to him since then. So I called him up because I figured if there's anybody that's going to be interested in trying to help me get this together, it'll be Bruce McDonald. So that's what I did, and he said, "Wow, okay." He actually called me back, which was very impressive. So I met with him, and I said, "Look, I've got the okay to go into a maximum security penitentiary for men, to perform with the men in front of the prison population and also some civilians in a maximum security, right, penitentiary that has housed Lead Belly and other artists." And I pulled out the card, the warden's card, the main warden, and his name was Burl Kane. That was the warden's name, Burl Kane, which sounds like a movie.
Yeah.
Right? Sounds like like a movie. And I said, I need, and he was like, I'm in. And so now I had a well-known director who was willing to be on board. He gave me a letter of intent, and I was able to get a production company to. So that was the first experience. And sure enough, the film, did really, really well. We toured the States with it, and I toured with the film and would perform, and it was life-changing. I think that's.
I think it was life-changing, not only for you, but also for these inmates, because, they were playing their music, but all of a sudden, hey, this Canadian woman walks in here, and who the hell is she? And,
Exactly.
and you say, I want to listen to your music and not perform for you, but I want to play, with you.
Yeah.
And I mean, you folks, you gotta see this album. It's called Music from the Big House, and it's the soundtrack of
It's a soundtrack,
things
yeah.
going on there. I mean,
Yeah.
I was absolutely blown away. One of the cuts is called These Four Walls,
Oh, thank
and
you. Yeah.
which an incredible. I mean, and you would figure that these are the kind of music that inmates in a prison would be doing, but that's the essence of what the blues was all about. Their
Yeah,
their futures were already predetermined. They were going to spend their lives inside this maximum security prison, but they had music as an outlet.
they had music as an outlet. And, these four walls, when we got back to Canada, I needed to record a tune for the soundtrack. And so I needed to write a tune for the soundtrack. And I thought, like, first of all, we all came back once we did music from the beginning. Once we came back from Louisiana, we were all, I don't like emotional. It's emotional. It's emotional to see people that have been uh, down, stepped upon, if you will. Whatever you want to call it. I mean,
Oh,
the history of that place is they scooped up a lot of people. They just scooped up a lot of people and black people. Frankly.
yeah. Well, that's basically the history of the blues. People that
Exactly.
were sheltered, oppressed. They didn't really know if they were ever going to get out of the life that they were living, and so they wrote about it and they sang about it.
Exactly. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to say, and how would I approach this new tune? So I needed to write this tune. I wanted to write this tune. I wanted to write it about my experience in Angola. Meeting these men, hearing their stories, and all of this stuff. And so I thought, okay, so the way that I could write that tune is to put myself in their place as best as I
Mhm.
could. So I write it from the position of an inmate, right? You see these bars, you see these chains, you think you don't know me. I have no name, right? That's what you think, and you think that we're not alike. We're more alike than you think we are, basically, right? So I put myself sort of in the inmate's position from what I had seen and heard, and and it came out these four walls, which I think is a pretty cool thing.
So this wasn't a one-shot deal. You didn't just say, "Okay, I'm going to do this music from the big house, and that's my hoorah," because you turned around and said, "Listen, I've done this with a maximum security prison for men. What about doing this with a women's maximum security prison?"
That's what I'm doing, actually.
And you're working on that now and there was one really major stepping block and difference between the two. The men had instruments, you
Yes,
know, the women had nothing.
the women have nothing. So through a series of events, I was artist in residence in Kansas City, and they wanted me to go into this prison. And because they knew I had done music from the big house. So as artist in residence, the deal is that you take music into the community. So where do you want to take it? How do you want to do this? Where do you want to go and this stuff? They had suggested to me that I would take music and work with inmates again. So I asked about the male prison. The male prison, of course, they have guitars, they have a music program, they have this, they have that. And the women's prison had basically nothing. So I said I would go into the women's prison. That led me to, I could once, it led me to working with the women. Now, this was in minimum security at first. So I started hearing their stories. They sort of gravitated to me and started telling me their stories and stuff like this. And I was compelled to to go into maximum security, and I was compelled to tell their stories because the stories of these women. Now, I'm not talking about people that there's people that are just bad people that just go out to kill and do this stuff. Pardon my French, almost. Um, but these women have been abused, and a lot of abuse, and
I think
and
you said they became victims not necessarily of their own choice.
exactly, they became victims not by their own. You know, uh, they've been abused sexually, verbally. There's racism. There's you name it, and a lot of them are white as well. So
Yep.
they've been abused sexually, or so they get on drugs. And anyway, it's a no-win situation for all of us, society in general, here in Canada as well. Because where's this going? You're just incarcerating more and more people,
Right.
and some of them, need to be heard. That's what I felt.
Yeah.
Let's give them a voice. Let's hear what they have to say. So I started on this journey, and it has taken up until right today, Stuart. It's taken 5 years, and
Wow.
I am finally editing this, what will be this film.
And that's
And
what
we
you're in the process of doing right now. You're editing
exactly.
this next documentary that will
Yes.
be released hopefully soon, that everybody can enjoy.
We're hoping, and this was done in Topeka, Kansas, the Topeka Correctional Facility for Women. And now the women, I went in, and I was able to get, as a start for hopefully a music group, group, or a music plan, or somebody that comes in and teaches, some sort of a music thing going on there, that, they can perform and stuff like that. So I was able to get 6 guitars, Fender
Outstanding.
guitars, donated to the prison from Jail Guitar Doors. That took a little while, but anyway, so we're trying to get this program, get some music happening there and stuff like that. But the
Ongoing
film,
program.
yeah, so the film is going to be, I think, very, very compelling. It's different than music from the Big House. I started off with the same premise, but it went off in a whole different thing, and it is very, very compelling, and I think that people will be really moved, and I hope, and when we did music from the Big House, Stuart, we got so many emails from people that it changed their hearts, because we seem to think that those people, that's them, this is us, we would never do that,
Right.
and I tell you, I've learned that, like, you don't know what you would do if you had children that were hungry every day, you
Yep.
know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think it's going to be a very compelling film, and we hope to have it finished by June.
Well, I want to invite all of you that are listening and watching and all to visit ritachiarelli.com, and download some of the clips of music. Also, go to Spotify and listen to some of the music that's there. Download some of her music and everything. Get some of her albums. You won't regret it. And that album, Music from the Big House, I mean, it's just it's mind blowing.
Thank you.
Rita,
Thank you.
you are an absolute treasure.
Thank you so much.
And I mean that from my heart. When
Thank you,
when
Stuart.
you open your mouth, you share your soul with
Thank
with that microphone and with the people that are watching you. I only hope, on my bucket list is to be in our audience one of these days,
you. Never know.
so I can meet you up front, face to face, and say thank you, Rita Chiarelli, for who you are and for what you've done for the blues.
Thank you so much, Stuart. It's been
Thanks
a
for
real
being
pleasure.
I very much appreciate you being a part of the show, and that'll do it for another edition of Someone You Should Know. Please
Thank you
be
so
well,
much.
Rita.
Thank you. You too, Stuart. And
All
maybe
right.
I'll see you when this film is done. Who knows? Might
I
have-
look forward to it. I
All
look
right.
forward to it.
Okay.
Take care, folks. Go
Thank
out,
you.
make it a great one. As I say, be yourself, because everyone else is taken.
All
That'll do
right.
it for another edition of Someone You Should Know. Bye.
Thank you.
Someone You Should Know.